Hey guys, this is Daniel with OLED Kingdom, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Panasonic UBP820 4K Blu-ray player. So this is pretty much one of the best 4K players you can buy on the market right now. It supports Dolby Vision, HDR10, HDR10 Plus, and HLG, so it's covering all four of those HDR formats. Really, one of the only negatives about this player, or some of the few negatives, come down to the remote, which I'm going to be talking about later, and the build quality and the design. So this is primarily made out of glossy plastic, and it kind of feels cheap. It picks up fingerprints easily. This isn't a huge issue. You're not going to be, carrying this thing around. It's just going to be sitting on your AV rack. Towards the rear of the device, there are two HDMI outputs. So one of them is for audio only, and you have two USB ports. One of them is on the front underneath the display, and one is in the rear above the Ethernet port. There's also some audio connections in the back, but I think most people are going to be using a dedicated AV receiver. So this is the home screen for the Panasonic 820, and we're going to walk through the audio and video settings. So you'll just go to Setup, Player Settings. You're going to leave most of the stuff on the default values, and Auto will just touch on the important stuff. So we'll go down here to Dolby Vision setting. You want to keep this on. If your TV doesn't do Dolby Vision, you can still keep it on. It won't force it like the Sony players. If you turn Dolby Vision on the Sony player, it's going to just force everything to Dolby Vision. And then you have HDR10 Plus. My TV doesn't do HDR10 Plus. I turned it off. But like I said, if I did turn it on, it wouldn't make a difference. If you are one of the unique people that has, for example, a Vizio OLED, which does HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision, I believe, I can't test this, but I do believe that it defaults to HDR10 Plus if the content you're playing has Dolby Vision and HDR10 Plus. So that's just a small thing there. But this player does automatically swap to Dolby Vision or HDR10 Plus. You don't have to do anything else, just turn it on. Let's go into advanced settings. And let's see. So this you actually want to turn off. So let's say you're watching a Blu-ray in SDR. You want the Blu-ray to output in SDR. This is sort of a conversion, and you don't want that conversion. In my opinion, you shouldn't use it. Let's go down. Here's another good setting for the Panasonic players, the HDR TV type. So depending on what TV you have, I have an OLED, right? So I'm going to pick OLED. But this depends on how bright your TV can get, which is measured in nits. So you would have to look up your TV model number and see how bright it gets in nits. So OLED, if you have an OLED, pick OLED. Super high luminance, this is for TVs that can get up to like 1500 nits or brighter. You want to pick this. So if you have one of the high-end LED TVs. Middle or high luminance is 1000 nits. So if you have something like a TCL6 series, you would pick this, or a Sony X900H, you would pick this. And then the basic luminance, LCD, and projector. I believe this is for 500 nits and below, or like 300 nits and below. So this is for, if your display or projector doesn't get very bright, then you would pick that. And then what that enables is the Panasonic player to take control when you turn the HDR 10 optimizer on. It will, take over from that specific nit level. So I'm gonna pick OLED. I know some people put middle or high luminance LCD. Some people say it looks better. I just stick to OLED though. You can mess around with that yourself. Everything else I think you just keep standard. 7.1 audio reformatting. I keep this on off. If you're watching a 5.1, if you're watching a 5.1 and you want it like converted into like more channels, I think you just put auto and it will convert it. But I just want to watch it as as the creator made it. So you keep that on that. Let's go back. Video, keep that the same. Audio, I think everything else is the same. 3D, language. I know you can change the subtitle size, and you can mess around with the subtitles actually, which is pretty unique. I don't really use subtitles, so what else? System. Another good thing is you can actually change the display on this. So there's a front display that lights up. You can change the brightness. You can just turn it off if you want. Here, front panel display. So you can have it as bright or dim or auto. Auto makes it dim during playback. And I believe there's a setting to just turn it off completely, which I don't know where that is, but I'm pretty sure there's a setting for that. Another thing the Panasonic player does really well is it plays back discs absolutely quietly. When you first input a disc though, it is pretty loud, but that only runs for a few seconds. I'm going to show you guys, how loud it does get. I'm gonna pop in Mad Max Fury Road, and then we're gonna take a look at the HDR Optimiser. So I'll be showing some clips from Mad Max Fury Road in 4K, and of course this is using HDR10. This is from the scene right before Chapter 4 when they go through the storm with all the lightning and tornadoes. So this disc in particular gets up to, let's see how bright it gets. So it gets up to 9,919 nits. It gets very bright. So you can see, of course, the OLED that I'm using doesn't even go up to 1,000 nits. So for any of this really bright content, the Panasonic player is going to be tone mapping after, I believe I have it after 1,000 nits. It's going to be taking over. So this movie has a lot of really, really bright highlights. So I'm going to be showing the difference. I'm going to be showing the difference with the HDR Optimiser on and off. And of course I can't show clips that are too long because, copyright. But take a look at this little area around the lightning bolt where it lands. And I'm going to turn the optimizer on and off. So this is with it on. Let me focus here. So I don't know how well you guys can see this, but this is with it on, and then this is with it off, right? So with it off, you can see that the highlights are it's just actually too bright and you're losing detail around here. It's just all a big white circle. Here's it with it on, off, on, off. Here's another scene shortly after that. So it's the same chapter. And this is when the lightning bolts are being struck and everything. So super bright scene. And take a look at the fire, the flames right here. So this is with the optimizer off. And to my eye, you can't actually see the detail in the flame very well. And then when you turn the optimizer on, it's hard to see through the camera. But with it off, it's just more blown out. It's not a huge difference. It's really small, especially here's it with it on. You can see a little bit more color with it on. And then with it off, it's just more white and kind of blown out. It's not a big difference. And you can't notice that much when the content's actually playing. Also depends on what disc you're watching, right? If the disc is mastered at a really high luminance, then of course the optimizer is going to make a bigger difference. So something like this movie, it's making a much bigger difference than something else. But the question is kind of, how much money is that actually worth? Because this is what the Panasonic players have over the competition. And it's also more of like a peace of mind. So when you turn this on, you're like, okay, I have the best, image that the, creator intended. As far as how it actually looks in person, I don't think the difference is really that big. And here's a third example of the HDR Optimiser in Mad Max. This is probably the biggest difference I saw between on and off. There is a lightning bolt that you guys can see in the top left corner here. This lightning bolt right here. And when you turn the optimizer on, it's much more clearly defined. And then with it off, it's like the entire area, the light is bleeding out. Again, when the content's actually playing though, when you're watching this and you're not sitting here paused on each frame, you know, if I did a blind test and you told me the HDR optimizer's on and I watched a chapter and then you went back and played it off and I watched the same chapter, I really don't think anyone could tell the difference. I definitely cannot tell the difference. I've tried it myself. But I do go ahead and leave this feature on. I think it's a good feature. But, you know, what you guys are seeing through the camera is pretty accurate to what I'm seeing as well, as far as the actual, you know, difference. So go ahead and I just zoomed in a little bit on the lightning bolt. So that's with HDR Optimizer off. As you can see, it's kind of bleeding the light out. And then this is with it on. Now for the remote, this remote feels pretty cheap and a lot of the buttons are mushy and they're all crammed into this tiny remote. It's also not backlit, so you know you're going to be using this in a dark room. It's hard to find what you're looking for. At the top of the remote, you have a lot of the video and audio options as well as subtitles. And then towards the bottom of the remote, you have your home, your pop-up menu, top menu. And towards, you know, down there, I was struggling a little bit pressing buttons I didn't want to press. I also wanted to show you guys that you can use the Panasonic player and hook it up with Amazon Alexa or the Google Assistant. So here I have my my Google Home Mini, and it is pretty slow because it has to connect to Panasonic servers, which I'm assuming are over in Japan, but we'll just give it a go so you guys can see how it works. Hey Google, tell Panasonic player to turn off. And you can see how long it takes, like I was saying.
Okay.
And it just turned off. So yeah, it does take a while, but it is usable like that. You can also use it to like open the disc tray and close it, play and pause, turn on, turn off. Hey guys, let me know what you think about the Panasonic UBP820 Blu-ray player. What do you think about the HDR10 Optimizer? Is it worth the hiked up price tag? This retails at $500, and personally for me, I don't think it's worth 500 bucks. I got this on sale for $350, which was absolutely insane. And it regularly goes down to like 400, sometimes 450. Personally, I think at 400, this is an okay deal. I think it's, you know, for me, the optimizer is worth about 100 bucks, in my opinion. You know, you can get the, if you look at the competition or even Panasonic's own cheaper players, which are about 200 bucks, and they come with the optimizer. They just don't have Dolby Vision. Or you could get Sony's X800 Mark II for $250, which goes down to like, you know, 200. Or you could get the 150, which is the cheaper version. And really, all you're giving up with those Sonys is the convenience of the, you know, Dolby Vision turning on and off, and then you're losing the HDR optimizer. But I think what really sold me on the Panasonic was just the name of Panasonic. If you look at other reviews, if you look at forums, this player has the least, or it has at least the least amount of reported problems with triple layer discs. So if you guys don't know, triple layer discs are Blu-ray discs. Usually if they're longer than like 2.5 hours, they have to put a third layer for the 100 gig disc. And a lot of players run into issues when they have to play and hit that third layer when they're at the end of the film, and players are going to lock up and freeze. So this is actually my 4th Blu-ray player My first one was an LG 4K Blu-ray player, and then my second one was the Sony X800 Mark II. Both of those players, I had to return the Sony because the first day I had it was freezing. The LG I used for a couple of years, and it would freeze on AAA discs. And the Panasonic is the only player I've had so far. I've only had it for 2 months, but it hasn't frozen, and I'm pretty confident, you know, from what I've heard from other people, that this player is the most consistent, it's the most reliable. So just on that factor alone, I would say it's worth it. I don't know about $500, but for me, about $400, I think it's a good buy. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Is it worth the money? Is the HDR Optimiser worth the money? And what would your second pick be if it wasn't this player? Thanks for watching, guys.